Hello and welcome to our League of Legends stream today. We're in week 4 of CLOL. I'm joined here by Graham.
Yeah, hello. I'm here with Eli. So we're going to be talking about this matchup here. It's going to be week 4 of CLOL, I believe. We're going to be casting USF Gold versus Winthrop. So that'll be a very, very interesting matchup. Now, previously, last time we checked on Winthrop in last season, last split, last semester, however you want to phrase that, Winthrop was actually probably the best collegiate team in the entirety of North America. So I know that I've received word that they have had sort of a little bit of a roster change. They're changing to more of a developing roster, but we're about to see if they're going to maintain that sort of status of being that top contender, or if we're going to be able to sort of upset them in a way. It's not necessarily an upset, but we'll see the outcome.
We definitely will. Recently we lost, our number 1 Heimer in the world, but hopefully our team can, pull through with this match.
Yeah, no, we have had some roster changes of ourselves. We don't have the same roster as last time. Of course, this isn't necessarily the first time that they've played on stream for us this season, so you probably already know that if you've watched some of our streams by now, but this is the first time that we are both casting this new roster, so it's going to be exciting. We do have some new players, and I'm looking forward to see what they bring to the team overall. Last time I casted in the last season, USF was kind of defined by the word chaos itself, honestly. They had a very chaotic playstyle. They were very good at creating awkward scenarios for both teams and then just being able to outplay in those scenarios, and that was kind of their staple playstyle. I'm very interested to see if that is the sort of type of game that they're willing to play now versus Winthrop, or if they're going to switch into a more standard type of playstyle now that they have new members on the team and they might be able to change up on those. We do have, I believe, Inzania will be playing for support today instead of Ferenda. I'm not too sure on that. We'll receive confirmation on that very soon. But we do not have our Heimerdinger player, Steph, anymore, so we'll be missing him a lot. He graduated last semester, actually, so we'll be missing him dearly. But other than that, we do have Wuxing as our new top laner, and he has been pretty good from what I've seen in all of the games that he has played. And of course, he did play a few games last season as well. So we'll see what the game entails for us.
I'm really excited to see how this newer, kind of different roster works for us. Having Insanity really sub in for Ferenda. Hopefully we get confirmation on that later, but I'm really excited to see how we play this. Definitely with our off-meta picks, we confuse the enemy a lot, but we might be pulling in, a new meta for us.
Very true indeed. Now, talking about just new metas, it's a new season, and I have not casted for Season 12 yet, and I know this is going to be Eli's first time doing it as well. So just looking at the meta overall, we do have some very, very strong picks in contention for this. We have Zeri, of course, who has just been an absolute menace in professional play, as well as solo queue. She has boasted the highest win rate of any ADC for quite some time now. I mean, I believe it's like a 53% something. It was up at 55, I know, before they nerfed her. So she has been an absolute menace to everyone on the Rift, and we'll probably see her taken away now. I mean, it's a very, very big deal when you talk about these sort of super power picks, because they're always going to be something that red side has to take away, because if you first pick it, it's going to be very hard to try and actually deal with it. You have to draft around that pick entirely. And speaking of red side, USF is starting on red side, so we'll see if they'll be banning this area away, or if they think that they have some type of answer to that and they're willing to just let it go in favor of a different ban.
USF hopefully, banning that Zeri, but another pick that is very contended is a Graves top pick, which is odd recently. Definitely seeing how his armor can help trade in the top lane. It's quite an interesting pick, and hopefully USF might pull it out today.
Very true. Graves has been one of the bands that has been facing USF for quite some time, and it's a very solid pick. It's very hard to actually deal with, and there's a lot of champions that can, in theory, deal with it. I know Gwen is a very prominent answer to the Graves top. Previously, last season, we've actually seen Yasuo be a part of the answer to it. I believe that was pulled out in World's Finals last year versus the Graves top, but he has just been a very big problem for a lot of teams and in professional play, and we're going to see if it's going to get through today or if they have a different idea of what they want to draft for both these teams. The other pick, of course, Master Yi. We still have Dandelion on USF, of course, and as such, Master Yi is going to be probably banned away. So far in the games that USF has played, Master Yi has been banned in every single one of them. So don't think it'll be getting through today. I don't think it actually got through last season when I was casting USF. So I don't think we've ever seen Dandelion actually play his Master Yi on stream before. But maybe today will be the day. Who knows? I doubt it, but we'll see what can happen.
I'm definitely very enthusiastic to see if we can get that Master Yi in for one game at least,
Yeah.
and hopefully win that game. But what do you think the draft is going to be like for USF and Winthrop?
I think it's going to be very intriguing. I know that USF themselves love the Zeri pick. I know we've talked about it before. They are on red side, so they might be the ones banning it away, or I said they could leave it open. I know both Chen Chen and Nick are very big fans of that champion, flexing it between bot and mid. So if it doesn't actually get banned and it goes through the red side, we might see that pick come through. I don't think it's very likely that happens, but it's okay. It's a very good thing. I do kind of dream about that theoretical world, But other than that, I think one of the biggest picks that we can see is going to be Inzania's Blitzcrank. He's very good on that champion, and he's been playing it a lot. And it has been banned quite a few times versus us in previous games whenever Inzania has been playing. So we might see it banned, but I would like to see if he goes for that pick. It's a very, very hard pick to make work in a competitive setting, but if you make it work, then it can be an absolute menace. So I would like to see that. Nick usually resorts to sort of these passive scaling up sort of carries that he goes in the bot lane. One of the biggest picks that he always had last season when I was casting him was Aphelios. So we'll see if he tries to go for that type of pick now. Of course, I don't think that's really changed. He's very much been a very consistent late game player that can sit bot lane, even in a 1v2, and just be able to scale up farm and be an absolute monster on Aphelios, Ziggs. I believe he's been playing a lot of Jinx recently with the new meta and just that champion being super strong in general. So I would expect that to be the sort of bot lane that comes out, some type of super safe scaling bot lane carry compared with, either the Blitzcrank itself, or I know Inzania does play some enchanters, so we might see that come out.
Speaking of the new meta, that Ari, recent update, it's been changing for Ari. Hopefully, maybe we see her today.
Very true. The Ari rubric was very changing in how she actually plays. It allows her to be so much more mobile in a team fight, and allows her to be just so much more active in how she plays the game, and being able to get those resets on her ultimate when she gets more charges on a kill or just a takedown, actually. It's so game-changing to her. It allows her to play team fights in a much more creative style, and it'll be interesting to see if either of these teams pick her up. I don't think Chen Chen has been playing Ari too much. It doesn't strike me at his type of champion, but Winthrop could actually pull it out, and who knows, Chen Chen could be surprising me. Maybe he has been playing it in scrims, not really so much in solo queue, but it could be something that he does want to go towards.
And another thing is, earlier you said that Master Yi has been banned every game. What do you think our jungler is going to be pulling out today?
Yeah, so Dandelion does have a lot of different picks. He's one of the more interesting players that we have in terms of what champions he's willing to play. Of course, back when I was casting him last season, Darius Jungle was his kind of next go-to pick in the line. He used to bring out the Talon. That has been nerfed since then, so I don't think we'll be seeing it every now and then. He did have a Viego every now and then, and I believe he is playing Trundle a bit more recently, so we might see one of those two picks come out. Maybe we'll see we probably will see the Darius. Trundle is a very good likelihood as well, because Trundle does do decently well into a lot of the meta junglers at the current moment. So I think that's what we'll be doing, but it looks like we have some different problems with drafts. We might need to be going to a break soon.
Maybe we have to, but Trundle being a very strong pick in the current meta junglers, as you said, but maybe we might see Viego as well. Didn't he recently have a change?
He did have some changes. The main thing is that Viego has just been such a very good champion ever since his release. That possession, being able to just alter the pace of a fight, being able to get that reset, the increase in health from actually possessing someone into a full new kit of abilities has always been such a strong tool in a lot of these team fights, and being able to sort of utilize that in early skirmishes as well as when he hits level 6, that he can get that ultimate reset, has been such a big point of contest for that champion. And when we talk about if he's strong or not, that's usually what we look at. Can he have good possessions? Can he get that timer off in these fights before it becomes a problem?
You know, Viego players having to be, you know, very flexible players, being able to have knowledge of most champs in the game, especially when they're fighting, you know, quite a few champs each game.
Yeah, it's very hard to play the Viego, honestly, being able to sort of know how each of these kits work, how they function, and how they're going to try and play that out in these fights. So we'll see what happens there. But looking at Winthrop overall, last time I checked on them, they're a pretty solid team. I knew some of their players previously. I don't know if they're still on Winthrop, to be completely honest, but they've always been a very solid point of contest. I know Winthrop's mid laner has always been this player that loves to play sort of roaming style. Back when Nocturne mid was actually sort of meta, he was one of the players that absolutely loved this pick, and I've seen him take it out so many times. Of course, things have changed since then. Nocturne mid is not necessarily the best pick right now. It's not meta, but the point still stands. He does love playing that, not necessarily supportive style, but being able to roam to a certain lane and say, yep, we're going to make things happen on the map is super, super important. I know Grim used to be on that team. I'm not sure if he still is, though, unfortunately, but he used to be a very interesting AD carry. I believe he swapped to support, actually, and he used to play those enchanters and be sort of a solid rock for that bot lane to be able to just stand on. So it'll be very interesting to see how these two styles clash, where Winthrop always tries to make something happen on the map. USF loves to do the same, but in a more chaotic fashion, in a way that's not necessarily clear to either team what's going to happen in the end.
You know, speaking about that, you know, roaming mid lane, a lot of games we've gone through, there hasn't been an Akshan ban, so maybe we might see that, you know, being pulled out through, you know, having strong roaming capabilities and laning capabilities.
This is very true. Back in last season, there was 3 bans that were always going to be against USF. It was Master Yi, the Heimerdinger, and the Auction. Surprisingly, this entire time in CLOL, Auction has not been banned against USF. Chen is still on the team, don't worry, but for some reason he has not been banned against us. So we might see Chen's Auction come out. I know he's been gravitating towards other different mid laners, but he used to be a very avid Auction player, so I would not put it past them to pick the Auction. I just got a word that actually USF has swapped to blue side now. I don't know what that's about, but we'll see in a second, but that changes the draft quite a bit, because now it's red side that needs to ban away the Zeri, and that'll be Winthrop's responsibility, or else USF will be more than happy to pick that up. It is a flex pick, as we mentioned, and therefore we'll be able to actually see what comes out of that.
You know, Zeri being a very strong pick. Now it looks like we're going into draft. You know, hopefully we see some of the things you said earlier. You maybe an Akshan, maybe a Blitzcrank.
Yeah, it could definitely happen here. It doesn't look like we're going to be starting yet, because I don't see the indicators for the bans necessarily. So we'll see what happens there. But just looking at this draft a bit more in detail, it'll be very intriguing. If the Zeri guys get taken away, what is USF going to be looking towards? There are a lot of strong picks. Jinx has pretty much remained untouched since the beginning of the season, despite being probably the best ADC if you remove Zeri from the equation. They could first pick something that's a bit more, universal, a bit more solid. I don't think they'll be first picking like a Graves top or anything like that, but they could look towards maybe the Auction if they so desire. They could look towards a more stable mid lane pick. But I feel like if they're going first pick, Zeri is banned away, I feel like it would be giving Nick a Jinx or an Aphelios of something of the sort, maybe going towards the support if that's the case, if they so desire, but overall, I believe that will be the sort of angle that they take.
You know, definitely having some interesting angles. Jinx being quite the strong champion, as you said, not being changed since, the beginning of the season. Yeah, having a lot of picks, just be really solid since season 11 started.
Yeah, very, very, very intriguing indeed, and hopefully the draft will start soon, but looks like they'll be taking their time. I believe they're still getting set up in the lobby. Winthrop joining a few minutes ago, so hopefully they'll be starting up soon. Other than that, it's harder to, oh, there we go. Now we'll be getting into draft. So Ezreal first ban away. Very interesting, actually, because Ezreal is not necessarily the strongest pick. Of course, he can be quite annoying to try and deal with if you don't necessarily have the tools to lock him down. So can kind of understand why they'd want to go for it. Of course, there's a Blitzcrank player. The Master Yi,
There goes our Master
of course, is going to be meeting himself on the ban table for today. We will not see that go through.
Sadly.
Yeah, very, very, very sad occasion for us. Now, in terms of what USF is going to ban next, looks like they'll go towards the Trinomir. Very good split pushing option, and it has seen a lot of play recently. His ultimate being so impactful, the sheer amount of burst in the game is so important to be able to deal with, and Trinomir ulti allows him just 5 seconds of not caring. So
seems like they got a good Karma ban after that. You know, Karma being a very hard to deal with support, definitely having a lot of poke in her.
yeah, Karma has been quite the problem, especially in LCK, is where we find a lot of Karma picks. They really love that champion. They first pick it sometimes, and it's very, very hard to deal with in certain occasions. Lulu being taken off the table, so we'll see double enchanters be taken off. Janna is noticeably missing from this list, and it'll be the auction. So Zeri gets through. I wonder if USF will go to first pick it. It is very much open, and I believe that they have every right to pick it up for themselves.
You know, Zeri being a very strong pick currently, especially with their Bruiser build. You know, taking Black Cleaver, being able to instantly, you know, stack that up with just one Q.
Yeah, very, very strong indeed. But if they're giving away Zeri, you kind of have to ask, what do they look to get, right? What is their hope? And actually, it's not going to be the Zeri first pick. It's going to be the Aphelios and the instant Gwen lock-in. So they have an idea. Jinx is going to be there as well. And there will be no Zeri available for either of these teams unless USF does go towards the Zeri mid. That is still a very big possibility that they can go towards. Chen has played it before in CLOL, so I wouldn't put it past them, but the Darius is going to be picked in. That is very much a Darius jungle, and the Soraka lock-in. So this is a very interesting draft. I honestly don't know where that Soraka could go, because we have seen Soraka mid in LCS, Cloud9 being able to pull that one out. The Thresh is probably going to be locked in here, of course. Very solid pairing. The Jinx Thresh, the Aphelios Thresh, those type of hyper-scaling champs with the Thresh Lantern being able to sort of safely get them out of most scenarios is such a core idea behind League of Legends and what kind of lives. And no, it's going to be a Pyke. That is extremely interesting. But back to my point, this could be a Soraka mid, or it could be the support. Now, if with the Pyke pick, I actually think it will be a Soraka support, because Soraka support actually does do pretty well on the Pyke. Being able to drop the silence as he's charging up his Q is such a big drawback to that matchup, and it does hurt Pyke quite a bit.
You're seeing Xin Sao being banned in the second phase. You know, what would you think of that pick, having already picked the Darius?
Yeah, they could see that it's still a flex pick, because, you know, Wuxing I do believe does play some Darius. You know, they're just kind of covering their bases. I don't necessarily agree with the Xin Zhao ban. I think it's a bit too much, especially with this Viego. They could just be looking to force this Darius into jungle anyway and say, yeah, we don't want this. We don't want you to play anything else. If you want this Darius, by all means take it, but we don't want this flex pick to be a big problem for us in the future. So very, very interesting take that they're going for on this draft. Of course, Trundle is still open out of the picks that we have mentioned. So if they so desire, this Darius can still go top lane and they can just take the Trundle. And honestly, into that team, Trundle does pretty well. Being able to pillar the Pyke Q, being able to stop that channel. Jinx, of course, very immobile carry. If she gets caught on the pillar, it's almost game over if she doesn't have flash. Gwen can be a bit of a problem for Trundle to deal with, so don't know if they'll go for that angle or if it will just be the Darius. But we'll find out. Syndra and Victor, so they're focusing on that mid lane here, and the Vayne Hover.
That's an interesting pick.
Huh. It will be
Where
locked
would that
in.
Vayne be going?
Now hear me out for a second. Entertain my thought process. This could very well be a Vayne top, and we're having a Gwen mid, or a Gwen jungle.
Is that?
Oh
and then
my!
the Nunu and Willem pick.
Now
this is actually it's quite an interesting draft for both teams. You know, definitely picking characters that you didn't think would be pulled out today.
This is a very interesting draft. I was about to say that Nunu is actually going to be mid, because Chen does love Nunu mid, but the instant Blitzcrank lock-in afterwards kind of proves me wrong here, and it will be the Soraka mid with the Darius top lane, and they'll take the Nunu jungle. So very intriguing here, and I wonder what this last pick is going to be. And it's Akali, so we have a lot of moving parts here.
You know, on the side of Winthrop, them not having many like bruisers tanks, having the Gwen being quite tanky and maybe the Akali running Riftmaker, but overall, it seems like USF has a tankier team, but Winthrop definitely has the damage to deal with that.
Very much so. If I were to take a very big guess, it will probably be the Vayne top, the Gwen jungle, the Akali mid, and then you're running Jinx Pike bot lane. I'm not too sure I like that, honestly. It's a very wild draft, and it offers a lot of chances to actually mess up and make mistakes. There's a lot of times where you can get caught out trying to make something happen, and you'll end up just completely falling flat on your face. The team doesn't necessarily have the best capabilities of just winning a straight 5v5. It can, but it's going to be a bit hard, The Pike is not necessarily something that is known for his super impactful team fights. Of course, if he gets the ult reset, then that entirely changes the dynamic of the game, right? But other than that, I mean, he lands a hook, he lands a stun. If he can't get onto like the Soraka or the Aphelios, there's not many other champions that he's going to be able to burst down and be able to get that ult reset. So it's going to be very hard for them to play out this game. They have to play it super well, and they have to kind of find picks before things that will spawn, something like a dragon or a baron. You have to find picks in places that you probably shouldn't, but it's all about capitalizing on the opponent's mistakes. On the side of USF, though, it's a very standard composition. I mean, they have a very solid front line. They have a Soraka, and they have an Aphelios. So they have a very, very structured way of how they want to play it. It's going to be something that's very easy to see. The Blitzcrank does kind of throw things for a little bit of a loop. I mean, it doesn't necessarily help their composition too much. They don't have the best pick potential overall, but again, we mentioned Inzania is very comfortable on this champion, so we'll see what his. I am getting word from our producer that we should send it to a break, so we will see you all back in the game.
See, everyone, we're going to go on a little break. Hopefully, we'll see how this game pans out. Yep. We will be right back. And welcome back to the stream. It seems like we had a couple technical difficulties, but, here we are. Graham, these comps being, very strong in the late game, but we see a couple, early game picks.
Yeah, it looks like we'll have to cut it off a little bit because it looks like we're running into a little spectator bug here with everyone being frozen. So, there we go.
Oh, there we go.
Yeah, I think that was just a little thing with spectator. Sometimes pausing doesn't necessarily work out the best. And here we go.
Seems like they're going for the invade, but, just a little ward clear as they back off.
And ladies and gentlemen, I mentioned the Nunu mid. It is, in fact, the Nunu mid, and it's Soraka top lane. So we'll be seeing that. Other than that, looking at Summoner spells, rune pages, just a usual thing. Nothing too crazy. Of course, the Ignite Dark Harvest Nunu is something to be talking about a lot.
Blitzcrank checking the hook in the bush there.
Yeah, very, very, very good to try and scout out, make sure they don't get caught. Of course, the Pike does have a lot of kill pressure early on, and again, it's going to be Ignite, Teleport, Akali, and there's going to be a Ghost, Gwen jungle, Ghost on the Vayne top as well. So a lot of intriguing options here. Of course, Ghost has risen in priority now that Teleport is kind of useless early on, and it provides a lot of utility for those solo lanes.
Giving the Ghost utility for solo lanes, it looks like they're both starting on the same side of the jungle. Let's see if, we're going to see an invade at all. Definitely not now, but hopefully later. It'd be interesting to see that.
And actually, it looks like they're lane swapping. We're going to have a Soraka mid and Nunu top. So we're about to see a very interesting game, and it's going to be really fun. Now, I don't know if the Nunu top lane will work out because the entire goal behind Nunu. Ooh, actually, before I get into that, let's draw your attention to something real quick. Do you see those starting items on the Nunu?
Oh, those are support starting items on the Nunu. Why would they be doing that?
Now that is the new fad in top lane now, where you take a support and you don't lane. You just roam and you help out the lane. Now, Lil has 2 bot lane hitting. A little bit of a trade there. Ooh, very close.
Blitzcrank barely missing the hook right there. That was a nice trade on the side of Winthrop. Definitely putting the pressure on the USF, but hopefully they can bring it back.
Yeah, very, very close indeed. They hit level 2 first, so you have to pay respects. One of the classic bot lane cheeses is not really respecting the level 2. Now, back to this Nunu top with the support. The entire idea behind it is that you literally just ignore your lane and you just roam and you help out other lanes. You just go to different lanes and you help out that way. It does put your team behind, but because of objective bounties, it helps out quite a bit. And that's the entire idea. It's the same thing with the Janna support, or the Janna top lane that we've seen a lot. We've seen Karma do it, and Nunu will be a first. They've taken their own little spin on this.
Pyke waiting in the bush, being able to hook the Blitzcrank, but doesn't seem to get much value out of that.
Very much.
Oh, it seems like Nunu's just ganking mid off rip. That's quite interesting. Definitely showing, like, that support play style for the top lane, making it a new island.
Yeah, very much indeed. Now, there's 5 people for this bot Scuttle Crab. Very, very intriguing, as the blue buff will get pulled in, and I mean, this is just annoying, no?
This is quite the annoying game for Winthrop. Definitely having to adapt to whatever USF is deciding to do. Seems like there's going to be 4 people heading mid to, maybe gank this Akali.
Looks like it will be, but instead, they're probably just going to be running straight up to the Scuttle Crab to make sure that this Gwen does not have a fun experience playing League of Legends. And Gwen, recognizing this, immediately backs off.
Gwen having a lot of trouble getting those 2 scuttles, not even being able to obtain one. But, hopefully we can pan this game out and see what happens with this exciting roaming comp.
It'll be very exciting indeed. They will try to go in on here, but
Aphelios getting caught out by the Pyke and having to waste flash, but Pyke also, seems like there's a Blitzcrank hook out. Maybe they'll get a nice trade off of this one.
Yeah, we'll end up losing that trade simply because flash had to be burned on the side of the Aphelios, but overall damage is going to go over to the side of USF, and I think they'll be content with that. Now, this Nunu has bought boots, and
bot lane really just, being just a Fiesta lane, having Aphelios doing a lot of damage early to this Jinx Pyke bot lane.
Yeah, and it looks like this Nunu is roaming down to the bot lane. I was about to finish that before they so graciously decided to have this be a nightmare for me. As this dive is very much happening.
They're setting up this dive mainly. Seems like Blitzcrank catches out the Pyke, and hopefully they can get that dive. Exhaust is used, and Darius hits the hook, getting first blood on the Pyke. They're going for this Jinx heal. Jinx, using flash and just dying under tower. Darius getting both kills. Being a good trade for USF side, but Chen still dies to that.
Chen does still die, so we'll give over 300 gold to this Jinx, but it's still in favor. In addition to the 2 kills to the 1, this Jinx is going to lose that entire wave that has just crashed, so they'll be more than happy to take that and then pick up this dragon as a result. Very good roam from Chen, and this roaming pick is going to be putting in some work, at the very least.
The roaming pick being very strong for just ganking all game. Definitely a good counter to Pyke, who normally just roams the entire game.
Yeah, it's very true. And keep in mind that because we have 2 supportive solo lanes, as
Akali going in on that Soraka, but not getting a very good of a trade out. Seems like going for the E and canceling with an R.
Yeah, very intriguing. Look at the levels difference between the Soraka and the Akali. It's level 4 to level 6. So there's 2 level difference on this, despite Soraka more or less staying in the lane, and that's a very big problem, honestly, when it comes to that, because now the Akali can just do whatever she wants and gets to engage.
Nunu going for the knock-up on that Pyke, but Pyke just escaping with the E.
Yeah. Back to my initial point, though. Despite the kill lead that we have on USF side, it is a 1k gold difference in favor of Winthrop. This is due to just the sheer amount of farming that is going on between the 2 solo lanes, and it can be very problematic later on. This Vayne gets to have pretty much a free lane. She gets to do whatever she wants. As I'm gonna shut up, as we're gonna see something happen.
Seems like another gank is happening bot lane. Will Blitzcrank land the hook on this Pyke for the Nunu to just knock him up? But it seems like Jinx is gonna zone them off, but they still get the Pyke, and that is a Pyke kill for Inzania, not going to either Aphelios or Nunu.
Very true. Now, you don't want it to necessarily go to the Nunu, because if you make him worth gold, then it's going to be a bit of a problem for you later on, but not giving any of these kills to the Aphelios is going to be very problematic in the future.
Darius just having a fun time farming this jungle, and it seems like, a lot of farming is happening in these solo lanes compared to USF side, where they're just playing a roaming game.
Very much so. Now, keep in mind that this Nunu is level 4 versus the level 7 Vayne, but that doesn't end up mattering. That's how normally the strategy goes, and as long as you can just remain useful with what you have, there's no big deal.
Pyke roaming mid lane, looking for the Soraka pick. Maybe he lands the hook. That should be Soraka's life, but it seems like, both Gwen and Nunu are ganking. There might be an Akali kill. Darius lands the hook, but and uses Ignite, but, nothing really plays out for USF side right there. They simply just lose a life.
Yeah, very big misstep from Wuxing. Not really respecting the Pike Q. He should have just dropped the silence right on the Pike hook and see what would happen, but instead he tried to dodge it out, ended up dying and losing his life. And of course, Akali Shroud providing pretty much true camouflage, not allowing you to see even through true sight with the Ignite on her, but
seems like Pike is coming in to, hook the Aphelios, maybe get a kill out on him. Jinx throwing down the root, Aphelios using the ulti, and it's still just not being enough, but he barely lives that.
Yeah, he will live thanks to the fact that the ulti with the Severum is going to give so much health back when he hits that Jinx, as that snowball does connect, as they need to be a little bit more careful with how they're playing this out. And 5 bot lane.
5 bot lane being a very prominent thing for this USF team, trying to get those ganks out, trying to just get that Aphelios ahead. Meanwhile, the Akali and Vayne are just farming for their life.
Yeah, both of them are farming very well. I mean, look at the Vayne chilling at almost 10 CS a minute. Akali following shortly behind her, as they're just going to make sure that they can get this Aphelios as far ahead as possible, as they're going to take away part of this bot side.
Darius and Nunu just consistently invading this Gwen's jungle, giving her absolutely nothing. Darius having, being level 7 above Gwen's level 6. It looks like Akali might try to go in here, but, misses the E. Just can't, connect it.
Yeah, we'll end up smiting it away, but Soraka is still level 5. They don't actually have that much pressure against anything here, as will land, nothing will come out of it though. And I mean, all the effort that they're putting into this bot side is cool and all, but it's getting answered right away on the top side of the
Winthrop
map.
Really adapting to to how USF is playing. Will they be able to pick this back up with their roaming? Looks like Akali's just escaping the 2-man gank on mid lane.
Yeah, we'll end up getting away using the Twilight Shroud. No big deal there, as inline is equal level. They don't really have much effort here, and if they go to try and contest this, it's going to be a lost cause. There are so many levels that are missing on the side of USF.
That is still being level 4.
Yeah, and even the Soraka, who has been solo laning for the majority of this time, just dinged level 6. They just now got this ultimate, and so it's a very big problem that they're coming up with now.
Mid and top being very far behind really puts them at a disadvantage, especially when they can't farm because they have the support items on top lane.
Yeah, it's very, very big problem. Now, this will all get corrected once objective bounties come on. That's when this sort of strategy becomes what it's so hated for. Now, usually it's with a Janna, which provides utility at level 3 regardless of what you actually do with it. But we'll have
Nunu dodging that Pike hook and flashing mastery.
Yeah.
Pike really going for the pick there. Maybe they would have been able to secure Dragon with that pick, but it seems like USF is just zoning them off using 4 people.
Yeah, we'll be able
to grab that up. They might trade a tower for Dragon.
It looks like they will be willing to do that. I'm not sure if that's necessarily the trade that they want to go for, but it will be the one that they opt into anyway, as they'll get that, and mid tower will surely fall. Never mind, plates are still on, so that little last 1,000 tick of health bar will be very difficult for them to get. Nevertheless, 2 plates for a Dragon. You have to say that you're going to be quite content with that, as if you're Winthrop.
Having low plates on both top and mid lane, Winthrop is really just having fun with the amount of gold they currently have. But as you said, objective bounties might change this game up later. Looks like
indeed.
Blitzcrank is going to go in for the hook, but Pike ease out of it and just, barely dodges it.
Yeah, no, I would be very intrigued to see if they're going to commit more to this. Of course, the Nunu is on this side of the map, so naturally there will be quite a bit of effort put towards here, as this Nunu will meet his demise here maybe. Okay, never mind.
Both flash from Blitz and Jinx coming out. It seems like they're trying to get a fight started, but Darius landing the hook, Soraka landing Darius getting a kill with his ult. Good trade for them, but seems like Vayne got first tower.
Yeah, the guillotine will be dropped down, and now, I mean, this Akali is kind of making a big mistake here, trying to save something in this. He should be really just pushing out this mid lane, trying to get that tower down, just like this Vayne's doing. The Vayne's not even caring where the Nunu is, and Jinx Rocket
playing a solo game. Jinx Rocket, just being used, but not really killing anyone because there's no one low health enough.
Yeah, we'll end up just going wide, hit someone, but it won't matter in the long run.
Vayne's starting to invade on the map, but it seems like Aphelios and Blitzcrank are going to be taking this tower. But, having 2-1 for Winthrop having, 2 towers taken, looks like Pike's going to land the hook and attempt to stun Blitz, but, ultimately Blitz just walks out of it.
Yeah, 2 towers to almost 1 on the side of USF. So goal difference looking pretty big at this point in the game. But of course, once the objective bounties come on, that's, again, not to keep repeating the same phrase, but that's when the sort of strategy comes online. Nunu doesn't necessarily have much gold to his bounty. I mean, he has 2.7k compared to the rest of the map here. He's actually only 100 behind the Pike, believe it or not. So he's about as fed as the Pike. But we'll have to see what the strategy
playing
is.
Essentially a solo lane while everyone's out. Nunu coming in, hitting the snowball on the Pike, but Pike again escaping with that little stun dash.
Moonlight Vigil did go wide there. Aphelios did drop his ulti and will end up meeting his demise. Now, I mean, just look at these Vayne's items. She has 1.5 items complete with the Berserker's Grief, so she is very strong and will only continue to be a complete menace. And I'm very intrigued to see how they play around this Vayne, because if they don't find the answer to it, the Vayne is going to be a very big problem.
Vayne being a very big problem, especially against, tanky picks like Darius and like Nunu. Especially having 10 CS per minute, just being ahead of the curve on USF. USF trying to keep up in CS, but, ultimately they can't because they have a roaming comp.
Exactly. Objective bounties are available now, so we will see how they play around these. These are what make this strategy. Again, I'm going to be repeating this a lot this game. But if we can collect these objective bounties, then USF is going to be in a very good position, because those objective bounties give quite a bit of gold. There's quite a bit of gold in terms of actual kill bounties on many members of these teams, because they have been farming so much. So if they can pick up these kills, they can pick up these bounties, then they'll be able to just reset the amount of gold.
Going in for the Jinx, not having much damage to deal with it, but hopefully stalling. And it seems like the rest of the team is coming in, and Nunu's not going to be able. Nunu picks up the Jinx anyways. It's a 1-for-1 trade on USF and Winthrop.
Yeah, we'll end up just picking up that kill completely.
Nunu ulti doing a lot of damage.
Very much so. And I mean, that's essentially a support 1v1ing the Jinx. To put that into perspective of what that means, this Jinx has been put so far behind. You can just look at the farm differential here. Of course, the Vayne is very much ahead.
And USF taking advantage of those previously aforementioned objective bounties, taking, Rift and then also taking a tower. But it seems like they've lost both mid towers for that.
Yeah, they will end up losing the bot tower as well. So they will be quite far behind in towers, but that's going to be quite all right in their book, honestly. They're still 5k gold down, but that's exactly what you want in order for these objective bounties to remain active.
Another big thing seems like, Winthrop having a very high ward score, just having vision absolutely everywhere, making it very hard for, USF to kind of come out of the bushes like they do with their ganks. Pike going for the hook and ultimately missing it. Seems like, Gwen's doing a lot of invading in answer for that early invades by Darius. Soraka having to drop out, but Gwen still getting the kill on Nunu, using her ultimate. Maybe that was a hard fight for Soraka being arranged and Gwen having the W up.
Yeah, very, very difficult indeed, but also Jess Chen face checking into this jungle is going to prove very difficult to do. And now, 4v5.
Blitz landing the hook, and that's Pike. Darius getting that kill. Once again, Darius being the strongest member, 4-0. Seems like they're going to try to continue the fight and maybe get drag afterwards. No, this is a very contested drag. Drag being, a good thing for USF. Darius trying to steal it, but being unable to. Seems like a fight breaks out. Darius might die. Vayne getting the kill on Darius, getting that bounty. Now, Gwen just shutting down this Aphelios. But Aphelios, killing that Gwen along with the Nunu. Seems like USF is having trouble dealing with this Vayne. Vayne just being very prominent in these fights. Getting a triple kill, it's very difficult for them to deal with this Vayne.
Yeah, very big problem for them indeed. And, I mean, it was just a complete wipe. It just looked like they were so incapable of being able to deal with the Akali Gwen. And the Gwen did eventually go down to the Aphelios, but at what cost? They'll be able to lose so much on the map. They lose, I believe it was a 4-for-1 in that exchange, and then this bot tower is going to fall down. The Vayne now has a 700 gold bounty, and you have to imagine that has to be a very big priority for them to pick up.
Nunu trying to stop this tower push, but they just dive the Nunu and get the kill with Jinx. Jinx coming back, from being set so far behind.
Yeah, very, very big problem. Now, this Nunu is not going to be looking too hot, as strategy did end up doing them some good in the early game, but now that he is sort of realizing the deficit that he is at, it's becoming very hard for him to actually play the game out. And you have to wonder, what is USF's goal here? What do they plan to do? They are now down almost 8k gold, just about, and at 18 minutes into the game, that is very difficult to come back with, and they have to try and find first this Vayne bounty. If they can get that 1,000 gold just for killing the Vayne, then they'll be able to come back from this. But you have to play around this Aphelios in a team fight. You have to make sure that he is able to free hit, and you have to make sure that this Darius is able to get an initial kill with his guillotine. If they cannot do that, then I don't see how they're able to win these fights out.
You know, Aphelios having a really hard time against that Gwen. You know, her having the W up just counters him completely, and Soraka as well. You know, they're looking to, stop this push mid, and Pyke throws out a hook but misses it.
Yeah, will be pretty difficult to deal with this. The Akali is sitting pretty nicely in the bot lane here.
Always answering that Akali's pushes, but being 4 levels down, he can't do much to fight the Akali. Looks like Pyke's charging up a hook, but ultimately nothing's going to happen with that.
Yeah, it's going to be very difficult for them to actually answer any of these side lanes here.
Having to back off. Blitzcrank just running in, looking for a pick and missing the hook on Pyke.
Yeah, we'll go wide here, and now very much struggling to try and find a pick here. The Jinx is not too far behind this Aphelios, all things considered. And when you look at the other sort of options on the map here, very, very difficult for them to play the game.
Nothing comes to fruition because no one's around. Seems like Rift Herald was dropped bot to counter the Akali push, but it doesn't seem to be doing much.
No, it will not do much indeed. It will end up just picking up a few things of CS there, but overall will not end up doing anything.
Another hook going wide. Jinx Gale forcing, avoiding that Nunu snowball. USF having a lot of just tough time getting these picks that their comp needs. It's very frustrating for them.
Very frustrating indeed. They have to try and find something for themselves to do, but it is so difficult. It is more than a 9k gold lead at 20 minutes into the game. It is an
Blitzcrank going for the hook on the backing Pyke, but still misses just barely.
Very, very close. That just might not have been a kill, honestly, because it didn't look like the rest of the team was really ready for that pick to happen. But, it
would have been an interesting
would have been something,
right Yeah.
You have to pray for something on
really
USF.
Needing something right now. Looks like Akali's using teleport to, engage on this team. They might be looking to fight mid, but it seems like nothing's going to happen with that teleport.
Yeah, we'll end up just running straight to Baron, and they're going to try and force a fight here. 2 ADCs on the side of Winthrop, one of which is very fed, and the other one is pretty much even to this Aphelios, despite investing so much into it on the side of USF, and they're just going to start this up.
Winthrop really picking that scaling comp and having it work because of the roaming Nunu.
Yeah, very, very interesting options indeed, and this Baron will go down.
USF's going to walk up to see if they can do anything. Oh, Blitzcrank lands a hook on the Pyke, but a lot of things are going wide. On USF, Pyke picks up a kill. USF getting absolutely wiped in that fight. Mainly kills going to Akali and Pyke, but 1 Vayne kill.
Yeah, and that's a very big win. I can imagine that it would probably be the game here. If not, it's going to be quite a lot taken from the base of USF, and you have to kind of wonder, is there any way for them to come back? I'm not too sure, honestly. They don't have that much scaling. They're not going to be able to outscale a Jinx Vayne in the long run, so the strategy has kind of fallen off at this point, and it's going to be very hard for USF to try and come back in this game.
USF not getting ahead in the early game, so it's really just showing that even with a scaling comp, they're not going to be able to counter that scaling Vayne and Jinx.
Yeah, very difficult indeed. And going back here, the Vayne, once she picks up this dragon, of course, the Jinx becoming 2 items herself, Akali at 3. This Vayne gonna be quite strong once she takes this reset, and it'll be quite difficult. We of course have the 2 item on the Aphelios, but when you look at the other side, the Jinx is at the same item spike. There's no advantage that you have built for yourself in any lane at this point. It's all been neutralized, and you can only hope to wonder what they have next.
Maybe USF will take this time to, farm up lanes that, have super minions to get more XP and more gold. We'll see. Looks like Nunu's being zoned off, Pyke landing the hook just to kind of stop Nunu from really clearing any wards in the jungle.
Yeah, and we'll end up trying to get a pick. Nothing happened there. Snowball will just go into the wall. Does not want to engage. Cannot imagine that this Nunu would live for any amount of time if he does snowball in. I mean,
Nunu only having 1 item and Boots, very far behind the rest of the team.
It's very, very hard for them to do so indeed. And you have to kind of wonder, what are we gonna see? How are they gonna defend this? Because there's not much left for them to do. Aphelios doesn't have the best guns for actually defending, and even so...
Oh, Blitzcrank landing the hook and knocking up the Pyke, but Pyke just going back over the wall with a flash. Seems like, this Akali and Vayne being able to scale up because of the lack of people in their team. Gwen getting the kill on Nunu. It's really just tough for USF to do anything against such a hard scaling and strong comp.
Very much so. The Nexus Towers are going to be under fire very soon, and it looks like they'll take top inhib instead and just look to play this a bit slower, a bit more methodically, make sure to not give away too much gold so that they have any chance of getting back into the game. And now they'll start to siege. Flash on.
Hooking the Vayne, focusing that Vayne. Vayne being rooted. Darius killing the Vayne. Maybe this will be, an upwards look for USF. Darius walking up, having a lot of trouble dealing with the entire team and gets picked off by Gwen. And it seems like Akali just cleaning up absolutely everyone along with Gwen.
Oh, the sheer amount of damage coming from Ivano on this Akali. The entire sweep through the enemy team on the perfect execution. The Gwen needlework coming through as well. It's just all lined up and completely melted through USF, as game 1 will be going over to Winthrop.
USF having a very tough time late game with the roaming comp. What do you think their answer is going to be for the next game?
Well, I think they should get rid of the strategy, honestly. I don't think they really have a grasp on what makes the strategy good. Making your roamer the champion that kind of helps out the rest of the lane in this type of strategy as a damage carry by building this Everfrost, by going these Sork shoes, it's kind of shoehorning you into such an awkward position, because that's the role that's not getting gold. That's the role that's not getting XP. So by roaming that type of damage threat, you're not actually accomplishing what that strategy is meant to do. You're just hindering yourself. And not to mention, Soraka just kind of completely fell apart in the solo lane against the Akali. I think they should just switch back to something that is a bit easier to execute than what they were trying to do here. It was cool. It was very inventive. I'm going to give them credit for that, for trying it out in the first place. I mean, it's a very bold strategy to try and go with. So I'll give them credit where credit is due. They did actually make it work in the early game, and they were executing on it right, but they didn't have any answers prepared for that later on in the game when the Vayne started joining these fights with 11 CS per minute, 2 items at 15 minutes. This is Akali being so monstrously fed, and they just didn't have any answers. So I want to see them, if they're going to try that strategy again, make it the traditional support. Don't go with this Nunu that's trying to roam around and do things. Make it something that doesn't need gold to be active. Or you just abandon the entire strat in general and try to play a bit more standard. I believe that they will have a very good time against Winthrop if they just play that standard composition instead of trying out all these fancy types of strategies.
Standard composition being a very good answer for, the scaling picks of Vayne and Jinx. But, something that they did do that I did recognize is they just left top lane alone and left that Vayne to farm. I really think if they, took that roaming potential and had multiple people go top, they could have dealt with the Vayne much better.
It's very true. I mean, the entire point of the strategy is to just go ahead and help out the team, but in cases like this, where the opposing top laner is not a tank that you can just let them sit there and do their thing, it's a Vayne that will become a problem. You should then look to rotate that sort of squad that you've built up, the Darius, the Nunu, the Blitzcrank. Look to then take it to the Vayne. I mean, sure, you don't necessarily want to have people top lane. You want to sort of get your Aphelios ahead, but at some point, it's a measure of, do we get ourselves ahead or do we get them behind? And it felt like they were too focused on getting themselves ahead when they're not realizing that they're not actually getting themselves ahead in the first place.
Staying really far behind, having that Nunu roam a lot. But I really hope that USF can, bring it back this match, show us something that they are forced to be dealt with.
Yeah, very true indeed. I believe we'll be going into second draft soon, so I don't know if we'll be taking a break beforehand. I believe we will be. So I think we'll end it there for our discussion on that game 1, and hopefully we'll see what USF can bring for us.
Hopefully we do see what USF brings out in the second match, And honestly, I'm very excited to see what we do.
Very much so.
And welcome back from that break. Seems like a little bit behind on draft. Ari being picked for side of Winthrop and USF picking Jinx first. looks like there's Karma, Yi, and Akshan banned, 3 bans that already went through last game. And then Gwen, Akali, and Lulu, having the Gwen and Akali.
Yeah. Gwen and Akali are going to meet the ban table today. Last time we saw it, I believe it was an Ezreal ban that they picked up, and I'm kind of blanking on the other ban here, so apologies for that. But they decided that those 2 champions, they don't want to play against them. They're done with those champions. And it looks like it will be a bit more standard. Jinx Thresh coming in. Like it already. Very, very standard bot lane. Jinx Thresh. Thresh, of course, is probably the best support in the game. Jinx is probably the best ADC in the game. Bar Zarya, of course. And this Ahri pick. Very, very interesting. Of course, Ahri did get changed, and we will see the rework in action today. But Kai'Sa going to be picked up here. I would expect this to be paired with something like a Nautilus, because that's a very standard, pairing that does withstand the test of time. And of course, Nautilus actually does pretty well into Thresh, being able to use that depth charge to kind of follow through on the Lantern. Instead, Blitzcrank will be the option here. So going for a bit more of a sort of erratic answer to this Thresh instead of the standard Nautilus. So I'm excited to see if they're going to be able to pilot this very well, or if it will be subpar. Of course, despite how USF played in game 1 and how that went, I think Tanzania played a pretty good Blitzcrank overall. So not too disappointed with that pick. But Graves top will be locked in, or at least I think it's Graves top. It's still a flex pick, but 90% of the time it's going to the top lane. And very interesting. They have double ranged so far. It's a double 80 carry composition, and they have to kind of find a way to make that work. It's a very big problem with drafting with a Graves, being able to sort of manage that around. If you draft too squishy, then the Graves kind of loses its value, but I'm sure they'll be able to find the nice little mid ground that they can sort of rely on. As we'll go into the second ban here. None is going to be the answer.
On the side of USF. Maybe they're slightly confident
I'm
in
assuming
Graves?
It was Diana. We have received word that it is Diana, in fact. So a little bit of a error. I believe they just let the time run out as they were thinking. So it is a Diana ban, and we'll see that. Rise, of course, meeting the table. Rise has risen in priority in pro play, and that's due to the fact that he can build the Winter's Approach Fimbulwinter, the tier item for tanks, into a Frozen Heart, and the sheer amount of mana that he gets will be enough to actually let him do damage because of his passive that converts it. So we'll see him meet the ban table. Very strong roamer, but I don't think Chen is a Rise player at all. So it's kind of weird to me to see that ban, but maybe, of course, he has been practicing it a little bit.
Ban.
Yeah, it's very, very intriguing. And USF, will we see another Nun ban? Of course we will, because why would they make our jobs easier?
It was a Viego ban on the side of USF,
Yeah, so double jungle bans that we have on that side. So Diana, Viego will be meeting. Of course, those are pretty strong junglers on their own right. I'm not sure about the Diana. They have quite a bit of AP damage already on that side, so I don't see how the Diana would be something that they want out of their hair, but maybe they just don't want the dive. They don't want that to have to deal with that type of stress. Of course, the Vex is going to be meeting that there as well, of course, and USF side missing a fair bit of AP for themselves, so those options will be taken away. Now, what will they pick here? They have to blind either mid or top. I think actually, it's not blind top lane. I see the Graves right there. Never mind.
Seeing the Vladimir pick.
This is
both being able to flex mid and top.
It will, if it is picked, it will most likely be the mid lane, because Chen is a very, very avid Vladimir player, and it will be locked in. So we will see the Vladimir mid lane into the Ahri, and I say blind mid. The Ahri is picked first, so you can tell that I'm blanking out a little bit on this one, but other than that, we'll see what happens here. Of course, the jungle is going to be probably the last pick for USF, which is very interesting. You normally don't see that in a lot of drafts, and that's because jungle is such a valuable role to pick for, as Tryndamere will be locked in. This will be a top lane pick, most likely, about 90% of the time, especially with that Ahri locked in. I can't imagine it would go anywhere else, so we'll play on that top lane Tryndamere for now. So I'll be answering the Graves, most likely. Very, very strong. We mentioned it before, that 5 seconds of just complete death resistance is so useful in a meta full of burst, and we'll be able to see that come out today. Now let's see if they will choose to pick their jungler here. Again, junglers going to this stage in the game is very abnormal, as Kayn will be the lock-in here.
Kayn probably going to be going, Shadow Assassin, seeing as they already have 3 ranged carries.
It'll actually be 3 ranged carries plus the Thresh, so there's 4. So it will be Shadow Assassin here. Now, very interested to see what USF goes for in terms of things, and it will be the Darius again. Now, I'm actually going to be okay with that. I personally think like a Xinjiao or a Trundle would actually be fine here, but they will in fact go for the Darius, and we have our compositions for game 2. There's no more roaming Nunu. There's no more Soraka mid. We have now a very
Standard way of playing the game.
yeah, standard for USF at least. The Darius jungle and Vlad mid, of course, are not necessarily standard by any means, but we'll take it over the Nunu. I think it has a much higher chance of winning and succeeding and being more impactful than this roaming Nunu that they tried in game 1. That being said, Winthrop has a very intriguing comp on their own right. There's a lot of moving parts here. I'm not a big fan of the Kai'Sa now that the rest of the draft has come in because there's not much that actually allows the Kai'Sa to join in. There's a Charm and a Blitzcrank Hook, and that's about it. No one else really has any amount of CC. Of course, if this is Red Kayn instead of Blue Kayn, then there is some, and I can kind of see it a bit more, but the Kai'Sa kind of feels out of place. They can't really follow dive that much, and so it's going to be a bit hard for that Kai'Sa to play the game, especially into Jinx Thresh. That can be really obnoxious for at times, but other than that, Winthrop has a very dive-heavy composition. They have the Ahri, which, as we mentioned before, is highly mobile now that she has been mini-reworked. They have the Kai'Sa ultimate with the Killer Instinct to be able to join the backline, Tryndamere spinning, as well as the Kayn just being Kayn. So they have a very dive-heavy composition, and it'll be on USF to try and either get a pick before that happens to make sure that their dive is inhibited, or they just have to live that dive. And with Thresh, very, very capable of doing so. Graves is very hard to actually dive. He gets super tanky, as we mentioned beforehand. So I think USF, if they can play it well, will be able to counter what Winthrop has to offer. But that being said, I think that this game more so comes down to a very high level of execution on both sides. I don't necessarily think that either comp has an edge over the other unless there is some sort of factor in how well the comp is played.
You know, I'm very excited for this game coming up because it's a dive comp into a comp that can very well deal with dives. You know, as you said, Thresh, Graves, but even Vladimir being able to, you know, heal through any burst damage and having that pool to be able to just dodge, you know, any dives that happen towards him.
Yeah, very much so. I think this Tryndamere will be a very big point of contest here. The Tryndamere can get ahead or he can just remain even, then he's going to pose quite a bit of problem. Even the rest of these members, the Ahri, the Kai'Sa, Shadow Assassin, Kayn, if Vladimir gets a good combo on them, they're dead. I mean, they're not that squishy, but with Tryndamere Ultimate, he can live and he can sort of persist for quite some time. So I think it'll be a very big measure of how fed this Vladimir is going to be, how fed are these members on the side of USF, and how much damage can they put out before they die.
You know, damage being a very, you know, key role to living through fights, not even necessarily just winning fights, but living through it, having to be able to deal the damage that to push back the dive.
Very much so. And with that, I think we'll be heading into a break just so that we can get into the game and get everything set up. So stay tuned while we go for game 2 of USF Gold versus Winthrop.
And welcome back to our CLOL League of Legends stream. We're on game 2 now, and it seems like USF is all going top.
Yeah, it looks like that will be the case. And first thing I noticed is that Dandelion is going to be top lane this game, and Wuxing is going to be jungling. So we have that going for us. It will be the Darius top with Graves jungle, but different option that we have available for us as
both teams are attempting to invade in a very funny way.
Very intriguing indeed, and both 5-manning this top lane. They'll be sitting in this bush and dropping the ward there. We'll see what happens, but looking at summoner spells, runes, just really quick rundown. It is a Ghost Ignite Vladimir with Predator, so very, very intriguing there. No Flash, of course. Not sure I'm a big fan of that. Vladimir does benefit quite a bit from Flash. It gives him a lot more flexibility in his combo game. But other than that, solid choice of summoners, and everything else seems pretty standard to me. I mean, nothing crazy here, honestly.
You know, USF having a late back, you know, getting to their lanes pretty late at the 130 mark. Graves is going to have a slower clear.
Very much so.
Seems like there's already a trade from Ahri mid and a trade on Darius and Tryndamere. Looks like they both go even.
Yeah, we'll go even indeed. Of course, Tryndamere with the Doran's shield. Actually, they both have Doran's shield, so excuse me. But mid lane trade will go over to the Vladimir by a little bit of a margin. Nothing too crazy, as we'll trade a little bit. And
oh, it seems like a blitz hook was landed and then right into a thresh hook. You know, both countering with their hooks and just the ADCs trading on each other.
Yeah, nothing too big here, as We'll continue the trades mid lane. Nothing crazy here. And
Seems like Graves going into Kane jungle.
yeah, we'll immediately try for something as Kane does not end up getting the red buff. He will actually have to back up
landing
as
a hook, and Jinx just using that poke. You know, Blitzcrank having a hard time walking out of that, but using the ignite on that Jinx. You know, Jinx might die here. Jinx is dead to the Kai'Sa. You know, first blood on the Kai'Sa, really strong. You know, very bad for USF side.
very bad indeed. They didn't exactly quite calculate for when that Blitzcrank was going to hit level 2 and got punished quite heavily for it, and they will end up suffering quite a bit there. Kai'Sa will collect that kill, and I mean, this is going to be
Blitzcrank
quite
landing in a
dramatic.
hook. Looks like Thresh might die in this, but Thresh having to burn the flash and missing the hook. Kai'Sa killing the Thresh under tower after using flash.
Yeah, very peculiar walk-up. I mean, there is no real point for Insania to be there, and already it's going to be a 2-0 lead for Winthrop in this bot lane. Kai'Sa is going to be quite a problem for this early game.
Kai'Sa very apparent with her stronger early game damage than Jinx. You know, Blitzcrank hitting that level 2 just really just set them back.
We'll see a gank here, but it is Graves Vladimir. I don't expect this to ever result in a kill, let alone a flash burn, so we'll end up just backing off, heading straight to the top scuttle as Kane goes for another invade.
Kane going for another invade, and it seems like Darius and Tryndamere. Darius, you know, constantly pushing on this Tryndamere, not giving him much to do other than farm.
Yeah, we'll be able to pick up some things under tower. Does miss a few though, as it is a bit difficult to try and farm those uneven health bars under the tower. And I mean, so far this early game, it's not really proven to be
landing
too.
the charm on Vlad and getting a nice electrocute proc, winning that trade.
Yeah, already proven to be.
Darius landing the hook and having a nice trade with the Tryndamere, but it seems like they're both going 1-for-1 in damage.
Yeah, trading very evenly here on the top side of the map, and mid lane, of course, is going to be trading decently well. Of course, Ari does have a bit more sustain with the Corrupting Potion biscuits, but Vladimir is Vladimir, so he's able to sort of negate that overall, and Mocking Shout does come out, but does not end up doing anything, as it does not stop the recall, as Darius will just go back.
Thresh lining up for a gank on the Ahri, but missing the hook, you know. Having a tough time getting that, you know, killing on Ahri.
Yeah, USF is struggling to find any amount of ground here in this early game. They don't really have many angles to try and gank a lane. Of course, Tryndamere is very good at just avoiding everything. The Vladimir Graves is not really good at setting up ganks in their own right, and with the bot lane going pretty horribly for the side of USF, it's going to be kind of hard. We will see both junglers end up on the bot side here, so we might see some action come out.
You know, both junglers really being in on there. Oh my god, everyone's going in, but it seems like Kane gets a kill on the Thresh who hooked in Graves, and Graves having to flash back under tower for that.
Yeah, a little bit of a miscalculation there. They didn't quite see the Kane little dot on the ground whenever he's inside the wall. They didn't see it pop up, and the flash in onto the Blitzcrank. It's a bit aggressive, and they end up going down for it, and another kill going over to the side of Winthrop in this early game.
You know, Winthrop really just showing early game dominance against USF. How do you think USF is going to answer this?
I think they need to sort of take this a bit slower. I think they're trying a bit too hard here. They need to find some ground first. They scale much better than Winthrop does. They have the Vladimir, they have the Jinx, they have the Graves, excuse me, and they're able to scale up super well compared to Winthrop's side as
for the trade on Tryndamere, but ultimately nothing comes out of it.
yeah.
Zoning
So
Tryndamere off of that wave though.
we'll continue for this trade actually.
Oh, Darius just winning that trade, you know, getting his blood stacks up and igniting him, so Tryndamere can't win that. But it looks like there's a 1-for-1 trade as Kane takes out the Graves.
Yeah, Kane will one-shot that Graves pretty much. He was at half health, so it's not really a one-shot, but point still stands. Pretty much WQ, straightforward kill, and it ends up being 1-for-1 when it really should have just been a 1-for-0 on
You know,
that side.
Ari landing the charm on Vladimir, them having a nice out fight. Vladimir losing this fight, but hopefully being able to bring back damage on the Ari and ultimately losing the trade. Vladimir ignited. Ari with the new dashes. Vladimir pulling. Hopefully he gets something out of Vladimir getting the kill and winning that fight mid lane.
Very well played from Chen Chen there, honestly. Being able to use Ghost, get in between the minions, because a ghosted effect actually... Ooh.
Oh, Blitzcrank going with the Hex Flash and hooking in the Jinx. Jinx having a tough time, you know, kiting out that Blitzcrank. Blitzcrank keeping Jinx from going back under tower as Thresh can't really do anything to help the Jinx in this situation. You know, Jinx going down to Kai'Sa. Thresh having to back
Let's
off
look
very
soon.
fast. Oh, looks like Graves walks in. Blitzcrank hits another hook, but they're both going for the Kaisa. Kaisa getting the kill on Thresh, and Graves, struggling to get any kills right there. Kane coming in. Graves getting the kill on Blitzcrank. Maybe we'll see something good from USF here.
Maybe indeed. Dodges the W.
Graves having a nice time kiting out that Kane, but Kane getting the stacks for Shadow Assassin.
Yeah, and it just looks like Nick is not really respecting this Blitzcrank that much. Of course, credit where credit is due. Kenji was able to land a beautiful hook through the Thresh and being able to kite that around. And
Darius landing the hook on Tryndamere, getting full stacks, but they're both level 6, so Darius doesn't go for the kill.
Yeah, cannot go for the kill now that the Undying Rage is available for the Tryndamere, but I mean, this top side is going very much in the favor of Dandelion here, and we'll be hopefully seeing him be able to extend that lead a little bit more. But looking more at the rest of the map here, of course, mid lane is going to be able to pick up quite a bit.
Seems like Tryndamere's invading our jungle.
Yeah,
USF jungle.
Very, very classic Tryndamere move as
Kenji taking the hook and just going for the all-in on Thresh, but Thresh flashing out and being able to live that engage.
Yeah, we'll be able to burn the Killer Instinct. Ghost popped on the Tryndamere. Hello, camera? Okay, there we go.
Okay, there's the camera. There was a slight trade on the Tryndamere and Darius part, but it seems like nothing came to fruition. Nick just not respecting that Blitzcrank, but Blitzcrank almost hitting that hook. Nick getting the kill after flashing around the Blitzcrank. Now Nick might be able to get a pick on the Kaisa, but ultimately cannot get it.
Very good flash on Nick. That was actually a very well played baiting out the going for the hook as. Ooh, well played.
Vladimir getting charmed right before his pull happens and having an equal trade on both parts.
Yeah, his Predator is actually still active, so he can actually trade very nicely into this. Does fall off right about now, but very well played from Chen in these trades, and it looks like this Vladimir is proving to be a very nice pick into this Ahri, and Chen sort of flexing his ability to play this matchup.
Chen really just showing he can do something on this Vladimir. Maybe Winthrop is going to have to answer this Vladimir. It looks like Blitzcrank's coming in for a gank.
Yeah, should not result in anything. Of course, Vladimir with the Sanguine Pool being able to become untargetable for quite some time. I believe it's about 1.5 seconds, maybe 2, but very, very useful ability for getting out of situations like that. As looking at the game state now, it's not as bad as it was a few minutes ago, but there's a 4-0 Kaisa. Does now complete her Immortal Shield Bow. I'm not sure I actually kind of like that itemization. I think a Gale Force actually would have been much better here. Provides a lot more assassination capabilities, as well as more mobility, more survivability. I don't think the Immortal Shield Bow is necessarily the right play here, but that being said, it's a good enough option for it to not be like too crazy. There is a lot of burst on the side of USF Gold, so I understand the want to have that lifeline passive be able to survive for a little bit, but it's preference, I believe, at this point in the game.
As USF gets a Dragon, maybe this Dragon could help them out, get ahead in the early game.
Very much so. I mean, the Hextech Dragon is very, very solid dragon to have on its own, actually. Being able to get that little bit of ability haste and attack speed. Very solid little bump up in the capabilities of these fighters. So we'll see what USF can do with it. But looking at the rest of this map here, of course, Tryndamere building the double crit cloak. It's just Tryndamere things. I mean, nothing too crazy. As Vladimir, I'm very interested to see how he's going to play this game out, because he is going to be the focal point for USF at this point in the game. He is the leader that is going to need to become super fed in order for this comp to work out. And
let's
crank goes wide.
Hook going wide, and Jinx just being able to deal with that. Looks. Oh my God! Vladimir's damage with the Predator.
He's dead.
The Ahri goes to Vladimir. Nice play with that Vladimir.
That was so much burst coming out. The full charge E into the...
Looks like Kane's trying to get the Vladimir, but, Graves is there to answer the gank.
Ooh.
Graves goes wide. Kane getting out of that engagement.
Yeah, Kane going in on the Vladimir. I'm not sure he would have even won that regardless.
Oh, Blitzcrank going for the hook. This game is just a fiesta, and there goes the Thresh down to the Blitzcrank. Jinx trying to answer by poking out that Kaisa, but, not really being able to do anything because of the Bloodthirster.
Yeah, will not actually be able to follow up any soon. Super Mega Death Rocket goes out as this Kane needs to be careful. Like,
this Vladimir just doing so much damage to this Kane, and Kane not being able to do anything.
Yeah, we'll smite away the cannon, but really playing it risky there. I mean, Chen can very much turn around on this Ahri and one-shotter, but we'll get charmed up.
Chen being 2 levels up on this Ahri.
Yeah. very monstrous at this point in the game. And I mean, even though the gold lead is in Winthrop's favor, it's a 2,000 gold lead. Oh my lord.
Chen just half healthing that Ari in one hit with Predator. You know, Vladimir being very strong with Predator.
Yeah, the Predator proc with the empowered Q, being able to chunk out that Ari for 400 damage with a point and click ability. It's going to be quite problematic for Winthrop to try and deal with this.
Seems like they send three people mid lane for this Vladimir. Vladimir just ghosting away, but getting hooked and charmed. Seems like he can't do anything, but the pull comes out. You know, he's ignited and he's losing health. He might die here. Ari getting the kill on Chen. You know, maybe they get 2 kills here. Kano comes out on the Darius. Darius being unable to do anything, and Ari gets a double kill with that.
Yeah, very, very peculiar roam down from Dandelion. Honestly, a bit disrespectful from Chen to not just pull the Blitzcrank hook straight away. I wonder if it was still down and he was waiting for that cooldown, or something else was kind of preventing him from pressing that button. But other than that, I mean, very, very interesting roam down from Dandelion, and he will lose 2 plates because of it.
Seems like there's a small fight going down in the jungle, but, you know, nothing's really happening off of that.
Yeah, nothing happening crazy.
Trinamere getting a lot of plates, too, because of that Darius roam.
Jinx will finish up her Gale Force, so now has a bit more mobility, a bit more damage, and can actually play against this Blitzcrank decently well. Of course, with 4 people on the bot side, they can't actually approach this tower at all.
That should be first tower going to bot lane. You know, that Rift Herald being very good for zoning off USF from protecting that tower.
Yeah, and more gold being funneled into this Kai'Sa. She is 4-0, 500 gold bounty, and when she gets back, I can imagine that she is going to be quite ahead in terms of items, and I'll be interested to see what her itemization is. If she will go for the collector, looks like she will, and now it's going to be a very intriguing game because it's going to be crit Kai'Sa. Of course, we didn't mention this earlier, but it's different from the usual AP Kai'Sa that has been kind of the more popular choice nowadays, and I do believe that crit Kai'Sa is decently good, as never mind.
Seems like there's a 2v1 in the river, but Graves is coming to answer that, but can't really do anything. Kane having a lot of damage. Vladimir coming out to, you know, help that Darius, but Darius goes down to the Tryndamere. Super Mega Death Rocket was used, but ultimately had no effect. Tryndamere using his ult, getting a double kill on that Vlad, but Vlad, you know, really cleaning up that Tryndamere. Maybe he can get another pick. Vlad goes down to the Ari, and then Graves taking out the Blitzcrank. Will Graves be able to live this? Seems like Ari getting the takedown resets. And look, it's like Kane gets the kill on the Graves.
Yeah, we'll be able to collect that all. And that was actually 5 people up for that top side, even though there was really nothing for it. And I mean, Jinx was staying bot lane the entire time. You can imagine that probably would have gone a little bit better for USF if that Jinx was there. But of course, opted to just go and farm bot lane, and I can't blame them. He is very far behind this Kai'Sa and would want to just get as much gold as possible. Of course, now he has to back off because Kane is kind of just there. So can't really walk up anymore. Mid tower will be taken away by the only Vex on the Kai'Sa. 4-0 and 5, doing very well in this pick so far.
Seems like, you know, USF is having a tough time dealing with their team fights. You know, they definitely have the Vlad, but the rest of the team is sort of lacking. You're getting caught out early in those team fights.
Very much so, and we're talking about how far behind the Ari is, but now she's 3-2 and 3. She has a bounty herself, and she is very much back into this game.
With Winthrop taking the Mountain Drake, and it seems like it's Infernal Sword being very good for both sides. Blitzcrank hook going wide on the Jinx.
Yeah, almost hitting. Very, very close indeed, and now the gold lead is going to be about a 6k lead for Winthrop, and it's certainly a better position for USF than it was last game, but they're still very much behind. Of course, objective bounties haven't actually come through yet, which I think is surprising for a 6k gold lead.
Going to be a very big game changer for USF. Hopefully they can pick some up.
There we go. Just as we were talking about it, we just have foresight, you know? But those objective bounties will come through, and, well, I mean,
Jinx and Blitzcrank playing the ward game, trying to bait out the Blitzcrank, but Thresh hook ultimately misses, and now they're zoned off. Thresh is taking an unnecessary amount of damage.
Yeah, very aggressive there to try and actually walk up to contest that ward, and now that they've all backed out, of course, the Graves is free to walk up and just take it, but...
Ari takes top tower.
Yeah, it is Winthrop that has complete control over even USF's jungle. They're not allowed to walk in there anymore. It is all Winthrop, and they're able to use that to just completely push down this mid tower.
Very similar situation. Blitz using the Hex Flash just to zone off the Jinx. And ultimately, it looks like USF is having a large struggle against Winthrop, but maybe they could do something.
Yeah, and they do have options here. Of course, the Vladimir is still very much a problem, and Winthrop has to find ways to deal with it. If that Vladimir can one-shot the Ari or the Kaisa, then there's a very big problem on the side of Winthrop.
Going wide once again after the Hex Flash, but Ari lands a charm on the Darius and does quite a bit of damage.
Thrush Hook barely missing the Kaisa. Not that it would have mattered because there was going to be a bunch of people protecting her, but would have been nice to see them try for anything, as now a bunch of these inner towers will be taken.
Turret is taken.
Yeah.
You know, Tryndamere just invading that jungle. Vladimir having to stay there to answer him, and Vladimir takes the Gromp. But it looks like, you know, Tryndamere wasn't very happy with that and traded back.
Yeah, will not be happy with that. Lands the crit with the Kraken Slayer proc and does quite a bit of damage. And of course, now with both the inner towers for top and mid down, you can imagine that Winthrop is going to put their efforts towards this bot inner tower, and they're going to try to extend their lead in any way that they can, and they're doing so in a very clinical manner.
You know, Winthrop really just having a download on USF at this point, knowing where they are because of all the wards they have in the jungle.
Yeah, very big vision gap here. Of course, they're USF working very hard to clear out this vision, as you can see through the vision score that they have collected on both their jungler and their support. But with 5 members on the bot side and Graves up on the top with the Vladimir, you can only imagine how poorly this is going to go for the Darius as he tries to defend this outer tower.
Darius having to defend the outer tower as Kaisa puts pressure mid.
Yeah, Kaisa actually just opted to finish the Phantom Dancer instead of going for the
Kane
Collector
dropping
second.
the Rift Herald on tower, and Darius is just getting dived by all of them, unable to do anything, and Tryndamere gets the kill.
Yeah, and that will be the inner tower for bot side. 3 towers taken so far, and they're going to continue to look for this inhibitor tower here.
USF really struggling just to answer what Winthrop is throwing at them.
Oh.
You know, Vladimir gets hooked, and that kill goes to Kane. It looks like it's going to be, you know, base tower, but this is a big fight here. Kane ult comes out. Ari and Kaisa just diving the enemy team. Tryndamere also getting a kill on the Graves, and Kane getting a kill on the Thresh.
Yeah, and that could very well be the game. Dandelion is up in 3 seconds, so we'll see if he's able to stop this. But when it was a 5-0, you can imagine that they're going to be knocking down on the Nexus at any point now. First Nexus tower goes down, and Winthrop is just going to look to end this game before 20 minutes.
Winthrop, you know, killing the Darius in base, you know, really just showing that they are winning this game. Oh, Blitzcrank Hook comes out, and while Thresh does get 2 kills, Thresh also gets eliminated. You know, Winthrop, they might be losing this fight because they lost 2 members. Vladimir going out, killing the Kaisa. He may be able to catch up with Ghost, but who knows?
Yeah, it seems I was a little bit preemptive on my call for them ending the game here. They tried to go for the Nexus kill there, but unfortunately,
Ari landing the charm, Tryndamere just going in, popping ultimate, you know, being unable to die and Graves having to just run. Tryndamere getting the kill on the Graves, but that chase was just not the move.
Yeah, we'll end up falling there, and now it is an 11k gold lead for the side of Winthrop, and you have to kind of look to see what their next plan is for USF. They have an open Nexus. They have an Infernal Dragon spawning. You can assume that they're just going to give this up completely, but in order for them to actually come back in this game, they need to make some type of drastic measure here. They need to do something that won't just let them automatically lose it. Will prevent Winthrop from just running it down into the bot lane and just ending there as 5. And
it looks like Dragon's going to be going to Winthrop again, having, you know, a Mountain and an Infernal Drake, being tanky and doing a lot of damage. Blitzcrank taking the Blast Cone into there and getting just absolutely demolished. You know, Darius landing the hook, getting the kill on Blitzcrank with his ultimate. They might be bringing this back due to just poor positioning.
Yeah, they get a catch on the Blitzcrank here, but
Kaisa going out. You know, a lot is happening in this fight. You know, Vladimir going for the kill on Ari. Looks like Vladimir gets the kill on Ari, and they get a nice pick, even with an open Nexus.
Very peculiar. Ari kind of lost track of the amount of charges she had. She used her last ultimate Spirit Rush to go in and trade onto the Vladimir, but instantly gets popped by the Jinx and the Vladimir Burst, and it looks kind of weird for the side of Winthrop. They had every single position that they could in order to end the game, and they kind of choked it a little bit. That being said, they're still very much in control of this game. It's just 2 kills that they've given over, but it feels like they really shouldn't have done that, as they'll start up the Baron to try and counteract what they've done.
Winthrop doing the Baron here. You know, it's going to be hard for, you know, USF to answer that Baron. Jinx tries to go for the steal, but ultimately doesn't do it. Kaisa taking the Baron.
Very good attempt to try and blind steal that. Of course, they can't really predict much at how this Kaisa, how much damage this Kaisa does. That's how you order the nouns in that sentence. Yeah, but either way, with Baron now onto all 5 members, I believe, unless Ari has missed out on it. I don't believe so though, but they'll be able to just walk down as 5 regardless of whether or not Ari has the Baron, and we'll see if USF can actually defend the incoming doom that is Winthrop.
You know, USF being able to answer earlier, you know, with the Winthrop bad positioning, but now that Winthrop's all together, you know, they might not be able to win the fight.
Very much so. Trinamir up top side, split pushing as the rest of them kind of hover in between the 2 lanes, and with midwave crashing, you can imagine that there'll be a Baron up soon.
Ari just landing the root and the charm on the Vladimir, igniting him, but Vladimir gets out. Looks like another fight pops out. Blitzcrank is in the middle of it. Kane getting the kill on Vladimir, and Jinx getting the kill on Blitzcrank. Ari getting the kill on Darius. It's just an all-out mayhem fight here. Trinamir just chasing this Jinx down with his ultimate. Ari getting a double kill, and Trinamir as well getting a double kill.
And that will be the game. They'll finally be able to end this out, as they're going to do a little bit of trolling over here, not ending the game completely, but it will be Winthrop that takes this series 2-0 as USF will fall.
USF falling to, you know, the strong Winthrop team fight.
Yeah, very much so. They did try to revise part of their drafting. They saw that hey, the strategy wasn't working out, so they tried to shift into something that was a bit more their style. They lane swapped Dandelion up top lane so that the Darius can deal with the Trinamir. They moved Wuxing into jungle with the Graves, and it looked like it was going to do something. I mean, the top side of the map was actually going very well. Of course, Chen really doing well in that mid lane, but the bot lane just kind of fell apart there. They didn't respect the Blitzcrank that well, and the Kaisa got too ahead, and they just led that to transition into so much kills in the mid game as they were going to try and fight for these objectives around mid side, and it just kind of fell apart from there.
USF having a really tough time dealing with Winthrop's just difference in what seemed like skill sometimes.
Yeah, very much so. It did look like Winthrop had a little bit of advantage when it came to map rotations and being able to sort of move themselves in a manner that allowed them to get these picks, allows them to get advantages in terms of numbers, and be able to use that in order to win fights, get more gold, and then get those victories and convert that into even more gold in the form of objectives like towers, dragons, rift heralds, etc. So very well played to Winthrop. They'll take the series 2-0, and it was very handedly so.
You know, first game being very odd, second game being a little more even, but, you know, Winthrop just, USF having a tough time dealing with Winthrop. My bad.
It was very difficult. They didn't really seem like they had any idea of how to deal with those types of map rotations. The Kaisa roaming up towards that top river fight, really changing the pace of that fight, adding so much more damage, and it just looked like that the Winthrop had so much of a better grasp on how to move around the map than USF did, and hats off to them. They were able to take that. I don't believe we'll be having an ending interview at all, so I believe that will be it for the stream. It is unfortunate that we will see USF go 0-2 today, but it is what it is. Congratulations to Winthrop, and yeah, we'll hopefully come back in the next week of CLOL as the victors for our next match.
Thank you for watching the stream, everyone.